Lieutenant Worf gives the greatest reaction in the history of Star Trek. Tasha Yar orders a couple of TKLs, and history never forgot the name Enterprise. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton and Denise Crosby.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review, finally, of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 3, Episode 15, entitled Yesterday's Enterprise, from a story by Trent Christopher Ganino and Eric A. Stillwell. This is a who's who, by the way. Teleplay by Ira Stephen Bear, Richard Manning, Hans Beimler, and Ronald D. Moore. This was directed by David Carson. Special thanks to Linda Anderegg and Leah Marcus, aka DJ Kitty Cat, for sponsoring this episode. This was almost exactly 24 years ago, February 17th, 1990. How you guys doing?
Wow. 1990. Fine year.
It was.
We're good. We're good. I'm good. It's good to be with you guys. I've missed you, and especially for this particular episode. I'm really been excited to talk about this one. This is a meaningful one.
Yeah,
me too. I've been hearing so much about it. Everybody keeps bringing it up all the time over the course of the years, and it's good to finally have seen it now because there's so much in it. But now I see why everybody keeps talking about it. It makes sense. It was that good where you can talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've got Ronald Moore, D. Moore, and you've got Ira, writing this. And I had forgotten that they wrote that. I remember Eric Stillwell kind of coming up with the idea for this story, which was so impressive. And but I had forgotten those two were writers on it. And you see it, you see what happens when these guys get a hold of the material.
Okay, can I just gush for a second here? I was watching this episode last night, and I was so pumped. It was like I was a kid all over again. I was like, this is how I fell in love with Star Trek. Some stupid kid getting into trouble and suddenly stopping and watching this amazing show and thinking, Star Trek is pretty badass. Like, I freaking love Star Trek all of a sudden. And this episode was just one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And I was so excited to watch it. It was like I was falling in love with Star Trek all over again. And I was so happy that I get to talk with Sirach and Denise and tell Denise just how much you sparkled and you shone and you just exploded back onto the screen. And the people that didn't realize they missed you in season 3 realized it then, because it was just so good to see you. And I was like watching it like, was she always this amazing? And I just didn't realize it. It was so good. So enough about me going back to my childhood and falling in love with Star Trek and how great the characters were and Tasha Yar and how amazing it was to see Tasha Yar again. I'd love to hear what you guys thought of it. And I'd love to hear, I know, Sirach, this is your first time. Denise, I'm not sure if this is your first time, if you've seen it, or you certainly remember it.
Well, no, I haven't. This is the first time I'm seeing it since it aired. So, and there was a lot that I didn't remember, just about the war that had raged and had been raging for so long, and how we were about to lose this war, and how the stakes are so high. I mean, I knew the stakes were high in the sense of, do we send them back to right the present? But the fact that we could avert a war of this devastation, I had really forgotten the details of that. It just, can you imagine if this episode hadn't happened, that I would have left at the end of what we saw in the first season, and that would have been it. What a disappointing,
what a ripoff.
What a disappointing thing. This is like redemption for not only the character, which is so clear in the episode, but redemption for me, even being part of the show.
I feel like it was redemption for the writers too. I feel like they owed this to you and the fan base and the character and to themselves.
I think you're right. I think it's all that's why this episode has such meaning, to me personally, because I was able to really characterize Tasha Yar in a way that I had never been able to in the first season. And you see all these prisms, to her character, all these different attitudes and angles, and her soul. What a brave character she had. What a noble professional to go back and commit to something like that. She didn't have to do that, but she had to do that. I mean, it was just such a great written part.
Yes, and I thought you were absolutely fantastic in it. I couldn't peel my eyes away from it from the beginning. It just kind of was like, what's going on here? And it gets right into it right away.
Yeah.
It doesn't have this kind of slow buildup. It is right into drama and suspense, and also, like you mentioned, like this heightened sense of risk. Something as big is at stake, and I think that was immediately present. I love the way you performed your character. It feels like when given the opportunity, and when the writing is good, then you have the ability to take the material and really execute and shine in like this amazing way, which I feel like they didn't properly use when they did have you there. There were moments there that you fought through the material and were able to shine, but when you're given such good material like they give you in this, it just reveals how remarkable of an actor you are, and how much how many layers you put on the performance. I agree with Brian about the closure that they gave you. Your character in the first season didn't do justice to who you are and your contributions to this show and this franchise really being successful. You're a main part of the success of the next generation, and you should be honored appropriately. And I think that's what this episode tried to accomplish, and I think successfully did accomplish.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you so much for your beautiful words, both of you. But yes, really, it needed this episode to define the character, to bring her back into this world, and the closing line of Guinan's to LeVar is, "Tell me about Tasha Yar." It just says it all. It's so it's so poetic, and such a beautiful way to end that scene, in that piece. Because yes, what it's saying is that this is an important character in this storytelling. So let's give out an important story. If you have an important character with an important story, let's give her an important story.
I also felt like watching you, Denise, like looking at this picture of you behind me, there was kind of a softer quality to your character in this episode. But I think that softer quality it just felt like there was way more depth. In this episode, they wrote, I mean, it's well chronicled, what was going on in the first season. There were ups and certainly downs, but this was such a good episode with such a well-written character that your character had depth. And like what Sirach was saying, it allowed you to really chew the scenery, really take, and it was shocking how many great moments they packed into one episode. I was writing notes for days because even some were just like one word or one look or one reaction. And like you said, the stakes kept getting higher and higher and higher. Do you remember when you were presented with this script? Do you remember thinking, oh, this is really, really good? And I do want to say also, we can talk about it later, I thought the directing was phenomenal. So I don't know if you could tell immediately from the script or if it just really comes out afterwards in the finished product.
Well, part of also I want to add to this is having an actor like Christopher McDonald to play Lieutenant Castillo.
Shooter McGavin, my favorite.
This guy is like another level, you know, and you can, he and I just had such great chemistry. And so it heightens everything. But when I read the script, I said, you know, my reaction was, oh my God, you know, this is this kind of script I've been waiting for. You know, how ironic that I have to die to get the best episode, you know, for this character. So yes, I was all in right away, and you know, completely surprised by it. I never saw this coming. This was never like when I left the show, oh, by the way, in a couple seasons, we're going to bring you back. I mean, that was it. You know, I was dead and gone. And so that was a great surprise. And then an added bonus was that the script was so good. So then you've got Chris playing the role and gives us, you know, all these wonderful levels to play, this falling in love, you know, element there, and this sharing of officer lingo and positions, and the woman knows more than the man in this you know, tete-a-tete, and this little dance we're doing, and he's obviously very impressed with me and what I know, and you know, and so it's you've just got all these very quickly happening, and the respect, you know, that's there with each other. But Chris was just so easy to work with and so delightful and so fun. We went on to do other projects together. I played his wife in an independent movie, and
Really?
I did a guest star on one CBS series he did. So, you know, we've continued to know each other over the years and work with each other over the years. And we just delight in it because we would make each other laugh so much in between scenes. And you know, he took me aside at one point and said, how do you say this shit, you know, because it was like a lot of techno, you know, the thing, you know, right, it's a techno babble. Actors come on and they just go, oh my God, you know, what is a photon torpedo and hailing frequency, you know, you gotta do it like you know it, and it's tricky for actors to get that going. So he was, God, how do you do this? You know, so funny. But
Denise, I want to ask you, you know, when you were on the first season, that was now in hindsight, the first couple of seasons of this show are known as kind of like a disaster period of Next Generation in hindsight. But did you notice that in this third season that you know, the ship was under control from the, you know, the people at the top, the writers and so forth? Did you see the difference in management style? Did you see a difference in the functionality of the way things were going, even from wardrobe to makeup to some of those departments? Was there more fluidity to the way things were running?
You know, there were definitely changes. You know, it had been 2 seasons, you know, had gone by, almost 2 seasons. So there was definitely more, the wardrobe department had changed, the accommodations had changed. But again, because most of my stuff was with Chris McDonald, it wasn't really, I wasn't interacting too much with anyone else. Patrick, he was still Patrick, and it was, I just delivered my scenes. A nice thing was working with Whoopi, who I hadn't, I had met before. She had worked with my father-in-law on something, and so I met her at the house and just really liked her a lot. And so I was really delighted to work with her. She was just so giving and easy to work with, and I was very excited about that. But everyone else, it was kind of odd, because it was like I just walked on, like nothing had changed. Like no one came around and said, "Oh my God, it's great to see you back," or, welcome home, or, it was just, everybody was on doing their thing. And it was just, I was just like another guest star.
Hmm. Well, Denise, I wanted to ask you too, pretty much a million questions, but I'll start with this one, which is, so you remember reading the script, you remember shooting it. I did catch that. It felt like a momentous occasion, you talking with Whoopi. I was like, wow, this is the only time. This is it. And I kind of thought, I bet those two characters would have been great friends had they worked together, had they been on at the same time. But I wanted to ask you, Denise, now watching it 24 years later, 34 years later, having never seen it before, did it live up to the hype in your mind? And what feelings ran through you as you watched it?
I think it exceeds the hype. Memory is very selective, and malleable, our memories. And you take what you don't, they're not exact. So you have a sense of things coming through your life now. That's how our memories, filter through. But so I have a memory of having so much delight in coming back in an unexpected way, never expecting to ever come back to Star Trek again, having such joy with Chris, and having such a great script, everything good about it. So that's my memory. So now I get to see the episode for real, blank, like an audience member. And it's really good. It's really solid. It's deep. It hits a lot of very profound and complicated issues, and I think it exceeded actually my memory of it, and it makes me feel happy that this isn't an illusion, this isn't just some thing that people talk about, and it really is there. It really, I mean, I defy anyone to show me a better episode of Next Gen.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with
I'm
you.
in it. Not because I'm in it.
The story. It's the story. It is because you're in it, because you do make it amazing, but it is also because the story is so well written. It's like it's a Twilight Zone episode.
Captain Garrett. Oh my God. My husband walked in.
Yes.
I was watching the episode, because I couldn't get it on the computer, so I put it on my television in my house. And he walked in and he said, who is she? She's fantastic. And he doesn't normally say that. he's a harsh critic, man. But she's phenomenal. She's like one of the best guest stars ever on
Trisha O'Neill. Her name is Trisha O'Neill.
Trisha O'Neill.
I thought the same thing because she did certain things. For example, when Riker comes onto the ship and he says something to her and she says, "You'll explain now, Commander." Like,
so good.
Yeah, when he says, "I'll explain it later," and she's like, "No, you'll explain now, Commander. I'll rank you."
Oh, without
Commander.
just as in command as can be, laying there half dead.
Yes.
And the thing is that, let's remind everyone, because we've all talked about this as an actor, what it's like to walk on as a guest star. To walk on a guest star, and this team has been working together now for 3 years, and they are solid. And you've got to come on as a captain, standing up with Patrick Stewart, and she just nails it. She just is so in control and command of her voice, of her presence. I thought she was amazing, and that's why these are the elements that make this episode so good. Are these guest stars?
Yeah. There was another moment where she is in a argument with Beverly Crusher, with Dr. Crusher, and Doctor says to her, "I need you to stay here. You can't leave now." And she says, "Doctors are always overprotective."
Yeah.
And Crusher's response was, "Yes, and captains always push too hard." But that exchange right there, she looked exactly like a captain. It was like, "No, you're not going to tell me when I can go and what I got to do. I'm out of here." And I just felt like that's no different than Kirk, and that's no different than Picard. They would do the same thing in the same moment. So I love that take charge attitude that she brought to that character as well. Yes, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. And just think, that was a while ago. She was a female captain. That was 22 years earlier. So, she really was formidable.
Denise, I want to jump on what you were mentioning about that scene, and Sirach was also talking about when she said, "You'll tell me now, Commander." But what you were saying about how it's tough for a guest star to come on, I was realizing that was her first scene. "You'll tell me now, Commander." That was her first scene, and what a perfect microcosm of what she was doing in real life on that set. What was she in that scene? She was frightened, she was injured, she was down, all these things were happening, but her character was, "I'm not going to let any of that change anything. I'm still in charge here. I'm still going to tell you, you're going to tell me now. I'm still the captain of the ship." And what a perfect way that really kind of shows and mirrors what it's like for a guest star coming on. You're new, you might be nervous, you don't know what's where, everybody knows each other, and she still comes on and says, "No, I'm still in charge here. I'm still going to make a great performance. I'm still going to do my thing." And it just feels like that character perfectly mirrors who she was as an actress in that episode.
Yes, absolutely. And I just recall her just being, just very professional and really lovely, and just solid, just a pro. Just knew what she was doing from the moment she walked on.
That's so cool.
Yeah, this was actually, so from what I understand, also the most we've seen Guinan's character, at least that I can remember so far. This is the most use of Guinan's character that I've seen up until this point, where maybe the most lines, the most scenes. I would say that this is the most I've seen Guinan.
And I think it's the best they utilized her by a landslide. And I personally think, man, I got a lot of hot takes in this one. I think this is my favorite Guinan episode. There are episodes where she's featured more later on, like Time's Arrow parts 1 and 2. But to me, this was her best stuff, especially that first scene with Worf, where Worf drinks the prune juice for the first time, and he gives the best reaction ever. I mean, he takes a sip and he's like, Like I watched it like 10 times. His eyes lit up like, oh my God, this is, and he says, a warrior's drink, you know. Oh, greatest scene ever. It is up there with the root beer scene to me. Deep Space Nine.
I finally get to see the Warriors drink prune juice scene. I've heard many stories about it. I've heard many stories about it.
Many
I finally
memes.
get to see it.
Yeah.
Many memes. But no, this is my favorite Tasha Yar episode. This is a Tasha Yar episode. It's not even close. Because the range of emotions that you go through in this episode alone cover the entire spectrum of a lifetime, right? You know, you're taking charge, you're doing your normal security things in the beginning. You show the vulnerability of sensitivity with helping somebody and also kind of falling for them. So there's that love story arc that goes through a show. But then there's this existential question of, you know, we all have inside of us about what the meaning of our lives are, you know, what the purpose is behind our life. And if we can add value to that, you know, we always strive to, at least, you know, if we can, we strive to have meaning in our lives and find some purpose for it. And I think that was what made this your performance and this episode so dynamic for me.
Yeah, absolutely. That you know, that she would, you see a depth to her that is you're able to share in. You know, there's not a lot of episodes in the show in the first season where Tasha's contemplating those kind of deep ideas, that self-worth, the self-purpose. She's reactionary. She's doing her job. She's taking care of business. But in this episode, it gives her time to be reflective and ask the deep question of herself. And the writers allow those answers to come out and for us to touch upon that. And that's, you know, again, I've mentioned before that my audition piece was a very, very beautiful piece written for the Troy and Tasha character that was never, it's almost like they lured me in, you know. That was
totally.
the carrot they dangled and said, this is what this is going to be. And then the show wasn't that. They never had a scene anywhere near that.
Mm-hmm.
That was my audition piece. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it showed me, it gave me insight into who this woman was. And I love the scene. It's a small little scene, but when Data and Tasha are in the elevator together, and what went through my mind was that whole Naked Now had never happened. Okay, so they're not knowing each other in that way, in that scene, in the turbolift. But you see Tasha really running through her mind, you know. Wow, you know, they're going to their death. I mean, really? Is that, you know, I mean, all of that is working through her mind. And it was just, you see that how much she cares, how she holds burden.
Another one of those fantastic moments. And we do have to jump to our break very quickly, but that's true. Data, Tasha never had that moment, but he still showed concern for her in his way.
Absolutely.
So we're going to jump to our break, everybody. I'm going to tease something. I've got a very controversial opinion with regards to this episode. Sirach and Denise almost beat it out of me just now, but I was like, no, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to tease it until the break. So tune in next week, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule.